Hey guys, Avarelian here. I'm going to show you how to use your library experience and to use it efficiently and effectively. So first thing, we're going to go off and go to the city. Your library, once it becomes available to you, you're going to have 3 tiers that you'll be able to put points into, but not initially. The first tier is unlocked as soon as you have access to the library. The second tier unlocks at tower level 75, and the third tier unlocks at tower level 150. But obviously at the beginning of the game, you're not going to have access to all of that, so we'll show you how to integrate your points in from the very beginning. Now I've made a chart that I will link in the description. Here it is on the screen. Basically, I've ordered things in a way where you can actually see how everything is ordered. So I have A on the left side is going to be your first tier. Tier 2 is going to be B, and then tier 3 is going to be C. And I've ordered this in a way where you can see the priority here, as well as when you should allocate points to this, and you want it to max out all of these and not intermingle points. So in my opinion, this is what you need to do. The first 4 that you see that I've ranked as tier 1 buffs that you should allocate points to first are going to be your resource buffs and initial strength buffs. So your experience itself is gained through enemy kills, enemies that you kill in most circumstances. I think events are the only thing that you don't actually get enemy experience through, but you do get it from completing events as well as completing objectives on the map and through standard waves, obviously. Because of this, you actually have a buff that lets you be able to increase your experience, and that's where you want to allocate your points first to. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'll show you in the chart in a second, but most of these skills you'll be able to, or most of these upgrades you'll be able to upgrade to a max level of 40. There are 2 which are restricted to a max level of 30, and they're only related to the reload of active abilities as well as the lifespan of summoned creatures. So this chart will be able to show you every level, what buff percent it will give you, as well as after the max level, what your maximum buff potential will be. So after experience earned, that's 100% extra experience that you earn. The other way to increase this value is through artifacts on the chest piece that might be able to give you a buff that will increase experience from enemy kills. The next thing that you need to work on is going to be your gold increase. Everything is scalable and upgradable through gold, and we're going to do this through 2 different traits. The main one being increased gold through enemy kills. That's obviously going to be on the tier 1 as well. It's right next to experience, so we'll go ahead and upgrade that to the max buff of 100% or level 40. The second main way to get gold is through your map, where you can actually get gold from the castles that you have claimed and are able to farm gold from after a certain amount of time. Once those castles have maxed out their current limit of gold, you're able to obtain it from each individual castle, and after a certain amount of time and after a certain amount of castles have reached their capacity, you can then I might as well just show you. You can then get a 2 times multiplier for all the castles that are currently at their max. So as I'm loading up the map, you'll be able to see that you can collect up to 2 times, and for the castles that are maxed out, you can take a certain amount from them. Now this is increased based on that stat. So just right off the bat, I just collected this like an hour ago, and I'm able to get like another 160 mil off of that. If you increase that stat, it will increase. So that's going to be on your second tier. It's going to be increased gold that is mined from seized castles. And this goes from, it's a one that maxes with a max level of 40 as well, and goes up to a percentage of 200%. So instead of receiving 80 or 160 from getting the 2 times bonus, I could have potentially received 420 million gold from that instead. So that's very worthwhile, especially in late game, where you can, if you're busy that day, instead of collecting a meager 300 mil, you can collect almost 1 billion gold from the map from just 24 hours of inactivity. Now back to the chart, you'll see that there's one more left in this. It's not a resource upgrade point, but it is one that is relevant to early game, and that's going to be your tower strength. You don't have to do this, but there are certain waves and castles that you would like to overturn on the map that you need this level of tower strength this early in the game, and this is a very easy way to obtain it. So the next thing that we're actually going to do is your tower strength. It's in tier 1, and we're going to go ahead and max that out to a maximum of 100%, the same as gold and experience. After this, we're going to get into what I consider my second tier level of buffs, and they're going to be what I call my early game buffs. You'll be able to see here, I put them in underneath 2, and they span all 3 tiers. At this point, you should have already progressed past wave 150 and are able to upgrade your tower to 150. And this will let you be able to upgrade and access the 3rd tier of abilities. But the first one that I would suggest doing is actually in the 1st tier. It's the last one, and it's the lowers the time necessary for active ability reloads. It's right here on the 1st tier, right next to the critical damage at the very end. This is crucial for wave progression in that it helps the air mage be able to use his abilities on a shorter reload time. So its cooldown is reduced by 15%. That lets him be able to shoot out his tornado. You can use Earth Mage for the 6-second stun, although at that level I think it's only a 3-second. But you can use it for other crowd control units that will help be able to manage the number of enemies that you have. And when you come into wave 200, wave 300, where they're especially during boss waves, where you actually have a lot more units being thrown at you, then you're going to need to be able to access those CC abilities more frequently, and this is the easiest way to do it. After this, we're going to go to our tier 3 and increase the unit's range of attack. This will allow your area attacking ability, your area attacking units to be able to target further away from the tower and be able to slow them, to deal burn damage, area effect damage for a longer duration because they have a longer time to be able to attack your enemy. After this, we're going to increase the unit's attack speed, increases the critical hit damage, as well as increasing the damage from active skills. All of these are mainly just going to increase the general damage that all your units output, especially the ones that do critical damage and the ones that use active skills. So this will help your crowd control units, this will help your damaging units, and will help all of them just to be able to handle a lot more enemies simultaneously. So let's go through these and upgrade them. The next one is in the tier 2, and it is increases units attack speed. Well, that's actually beside one of the ones we've done before. So let's go ahead and upgrade that one to the max. It's also going to be a level 40, which maxes out at 40%. The next one after this is on tier 1 at the very end. It increases critical hit damage. That's going to go up to 200% at level 40, which is a big deal for a lot of your main units that will deal critical damage, especially the ones that do area damage. And then the last one after this is going to be in tier 3, increases damage from active skills. This is on the very far right over here. So let's go ahead and increase this to maximum level 40 with a 40% damage modifier. Now, after this is going to be general damage upgrades. So depending on if you use like a mage build or an archer build, you're going to want to swap these depending on what you use. Most people use an archer build, therefore I threw the archers above it. So we're going to head and do that. This is on the tier 3. You'll be able to see it on the screen now. The archers generally do a little bit better area damage, and they're more reliable because most of their damage isn't scaled based on their active abilities or dependent on their active abilities. Whereas you have some mages like the moon mage that require that. But if you have units like the fire archer that are both an archer and a mage, they get buffs from both of these, which is extremely relevant depending on what you do. So, all right, after this, we're going to be switching to the enemy debuffs portion of the chart. And you're going to probably want to do it in this order. They're all in the tier 3. So we'll go back to the main and we'll go through this. Let's actually switch over to this so you can see which ones I'm doing here. The first one you want to do is goblins, because goblins are the main enemy that you will fight in events. So because they swarm and their bosses have much more health, you want to be able to attack them and kill them the quickest. Undead are second because their bosses have certain crowd controlled buffs on themselves, as well as that's pretty much it. The certain bosses aren't affected by crowd control and are highly resistant to others. Horde aren't a big deal, and bandits aren't a big deal. Horde do have a few faster units that make them a little bit more tricky to deal with, and bandits have trebuchets, which make them a little bit annoying, but otherwise they're not really that big of a deal. Back to the chart. As you can see in section 5, it actually is going to be we're going to be focusing on summon creatures. Out of the rest of the upgrades that you could possibly work on, summon creatures are going to be the best of these, because you're going to use them in certain circumstances, specifically in castle and siege battles, because you want to be able to mitigate some of the damage and some of the enemies that they throw at you. You want your castle to be protected, so you use the summon creatures as like a front line of defense. And as summon creatures are alive, they slowly deplete their health, which can be recovered through vampirism. But because that general health is decreasing at a steady rate, that's the first thing we want to tackle, is the lifespan, that general decrease of health. So this is one of the few that only maxes at level 30, which are these two right here, the lifespan of some creatures, and the necessary time to lowers the time to necessary to reload active abilities. Both of these max level at 30. They're the only ones that do that, and they upgrade to a maximum of 15%. So lifespan of summon creatures, important. The next thing we're going to do is the health of summon creatures, which is obviously right beside it. And that's basically the same thing as lifespan. Lifespan is just a little bit more important, because the summon health creatures buff can actually be mitigated through there's a turret that increases the summon creature's health, as well as there is one paid unit that increases the summon creature's health, as well as towers that will help that as well. But nothing helps the lifespan of summon creatures except for one tower, and it mitigates the buffs that you would be able to get from another tower that might be more beneficial for castles or whatever. So actually, that's the end of tier 1. We won't be coming back here. It's fully upgraded. The next thing we're going to be going to is tier 2, where the last two buffs for summon creatures are. So the next one we're going to be doing is the summon creature's attack speed, which is this one. Vampirism is a trait that you can get from artifacts that lets summon creatures be able to recover some of their health by attacking enemy units, not castles, only units. And with attack speed, it lets them to be able to recover that damage much more quickly. It's like a general healing DPS. Next thing is going to be damage, and that's the last thing we're going to be able to upgrade for summon creatures. It's arguably more important than attack speed, but in my opinion, when you're doing the later level towers and castles in the map, you want to have a greater attack speed to let them survive longer with vampirism and the lifespan decrease you get from the tier 1 buff. All right, after this, so we just finished 5. We just finished all the summon creature stuff. Now we're getting into the dregs of upgrades that you can possibly put points into. And this is all your late game buffs and considered unnecessaries. Your modules are not going to be able to give you that much of a boost in damage until you get past wave 3300. Everything else is just going to be units. All your damage is going to be units. All your major buffs is going to be units. So you really don't need to focus on modules until then, and they are a money sink. That's one of the biggest detractors to modules. They don't really contribute anything in damage until you get into the upper layers and you're able to sink just billions and billions and billions of gold into almost $1 trillion before they actually become viable with damage. Now, because of this, some modules actually have some beneficial effects that aren't damage, such as using the arcane cannon on your top module. It allows you to be able to stun a group of enemies. that actually scales on the module's attack speed. So that's actually going to be the first thing that we target. It's going to be in tier 2, module's attack speed. Go back to this, and it's right here at the very end. Increase module's attack speed. The next thing we're going to do is increase module damage. Modules are more relevant than turrets because turrets are only active in campaign waves. They are active at no other time, whereas modules are on your tower for every event, every castle, everything, pretty much. So that's why modules are more important. Turrets, though, let you be able to progress way further and deal way more damage than you would ever be able to do in general map events or general just standard events. So that's going to be the next to last thing we do is going to be turrets. We're going to be doing turret speed and then damage. So turret speed is going to be in 3rd tier, 2nd block. Once again, all of these are going to be max level 40 and then scaling at a max percentage of 40%. Go back to tier 2 and increase the damage for turrets. Turrets really don't do that much damage. They give a lot of good buffs through the gunner turret and the mage turret, as well as the looter hut. So especially if you're running like an archer build, you want to be able to upgrade your looter hut and gunner turret almost at the same rate, because your looter hut will obviously give you more gold per enemy killed, but then your gunner will give you experience as well as buffing your archer's damage. That's why archers are such a huge deal, because of how they deal with most of the main archers, how they do area damage that scales with attack speed, and most of them have crit damage. So if you crit an area, they deal a significant amount of damage in a large area, as well as if you use a gunner turret in campaign, which you're already going to use because you want this experience, it's going to give you a massive buff to damage. The mage turret does give you a better buff, slightly better. Per level is 0.4 versus 0.3, but it doesn't give you the experience buff, so you can use it later if you switch over to a mage build in late game. The last thing you would ever want to upgrade is your thrower damage, because throwers suck. Everyone agrees throwers suck. With damage-wise, they suck. There's a few throwers like Looter and Veteran that give you good buffs, and Prophet, I think, is a thrower too that would give you good buffs. But damage-wise, throwers suck. Always run archers, always run mages, run supports, run summoners. Don't depend on throwers. They suck. All right, guys, this has been a library guide. If you have any questions, just find me on Discord, message me, Averilian. I'm in all the major servers, the Towerlands data server, the Towerlands Black Bear server. I have my own Discord if you want to join us. We have a group called Fortress. That's going to be it. All right, talk to you all later.